to the stream. Let's see. Let's get us all set up here. I'll get my chat window up so I can see what you are saying. Where he is. Where is he? We have another of Patry Balanovsky's heads to do today. Same as last week. I'll actually show you how the last one turned out so you can get an idea. There we go. We'll let a few people jump in. We'll give it a second while a couple of people jump in. I want to show you how I break down the shapes, like how I visually break down the shapes in the image, how I imagine it before I start sculpting. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna draw into it, draw out the shapes for you so you can see exactly how I do it visually. But usually, of course, I'm not necessarily always. Sometimes, if it's really intricate, then I will, just to help me visualize it. But or especially if it's really subtle, I will draw into things. But for the most part, you know, like for something like this guy, I kind of just mentally imagine what separate shapes I can break it up into, and go from there. But this guy is a good way. I picked this specifically because when I show you how I break up these shapes, you'll be able to, it'll be quite clear. You'll be able to see, it'll make sense. Rather, if I take something really intricate, you know, break it into so many shapes, it just might become a bit confusing if it's not something that you're used to seeing. That flew up. Hey Sushri, how are you? Don't be shy now. Make sure and say hi and let me know what you are up to. Mike Black, how are you? Yulia's back in again. Always lovely to see you, Yulia. I have to drop these arms. These chairs are really high. Hey. Something I realised when I started working from home was how important your chair is. Because I don't know about you guys, if any of you guys ever suffered with any like back problems or anything like that from, you know, the kind of work that we do. You sit in front of a computer all day, especially on like a Cintiq or whatever, any sort of tablet. It kind of makes you lean over time. If you forget, you're trying to sit up straight, and like before you know it, you're like back over, all hunched back. And it destroys your back. And getting all that right is definitely from working at home, because obviously, you know, I'll do whatever work or whatever I need to do, and then continue doing my own work or whatever else after. So my back is taking a beating. So for any of you that haven't got a good chair, that's a good investment. Do make sure and do that. So we've a good chunk of people there now. Mike Black is saying, I was the one who recommended you for the CG Garage interview. Killed it. Thanks for doing it. Thanks so much, Mike. Yeah, that was a pleasure. That was really fun. It was a really fun interview. Really enjoyed that. Thank you very much for suggesting me. That was an absolute pleasure. And I'm glad you liked it. Yulia's saying this looks super cute. Looking forward to it. These concepts are really nice. Yeah, Patry Balanovsky. He's an absolute legend. His work is. I love the fact that he does a lot with a little. You know. I'm trying to see. I'm sure I had to do. Just for any of you guys who haven't seen it yet. I'm just gonna drop it into the chat for all you guys. This is Patry's ArtStation account. So that's in there. Make sure and have a look at that if you haven't already, so you can get an idea of what kind of stuff he does. He's a very talented artist. Top shelf. Sean is asking, did you do the Skeletor? No. Which Skeletor do you mean? Like, I didn't do a Skeletor, so it definitely wasn't me. Did I say I was going to do a Skeletor? I don't know. Yeah, so first things first. How many people? Yeah, we got a chunk in now. So, just to cut this out. So, okay, this is where I want to show you. It doesn't take much, just really simply. You don't have to be, you know, a draftsman or anything like that. It's just purely just taking it apart. And this is good practice to do. It's good practice to do even for your own drawing, because if you're drawing, you want to think in 3D. You want to be able to think in 3D. Because you want to be able to draw things obviously in perspective. Assuming even if you draw really graphically and flat, you know, it's it's part of the fundamentals of drawing, and it carries over directly into sculpting. It's the same thing, even though you know, you've got your 3D software working out that perspective for you. It's good to be able to, it's really important to be able to visualize these things. So we want to break this guy up into the shapes that we can then use in ZBrush. So, you know, obviously, for example, we gotta do this thing, which is gonna go through the head there, and then we'll get like this kind of thing, where you'll get that piece underneath, like this plane change here that you can see happen. Let's change color so we can differentiate. And then of course we have this big piece that will be that this red will be intersecting through. Yeah. It's not something that's the same color as the character, preferably. It's too close to the last one we used. Right. We've obviously got the neck, which we can imagine as just you know, cylinder, a little bump here, so it'll have like an edge that goes along here. And then I know there's lines everywhere, but hopefully by just seeing what I'm drawing across as I'm doing it, you'll get the point. And then we have the kind of the muzzle. That will probably continue down into the neck, because that's gonna need to smooth. It's gonna need to smooth down into that neck. Does that make sense? Obviously now, flat lines everywhere, but let me know if that makes sense to you. So we're going to have, each color represents a different piece of geo that we will essentially block together, get the shapes working, get the eye in there then, because that's a smaller shape. So we're looking at the biggest shapes first. Then we can look at getting the eye in, and look at some of the smaller, like this brow is lovely, and that's going to be something that I really want to make sure that I nail. And as we get all of those in, it'll make it easy to visualize, because now we have it all in 3D to refine the shapes. So let's actually, before we continue on, I just want to show you here what kind of stuff that I really want to, that those key initial primary shapes are obviously hugely important. That's where you're getting your nice silhouette and everything from. It's also, that's the stage where we're going to work out how it's going to look as it turns. That's going to be like the primary forms decided at that stage. And once we have that looking just nice. We can then add in the secondary forms, like we can get in this eye socket and stuff. So first, well, obviously once we have all those, we'll push in a cavity where we can place an eye. And then what's going to be really important here is this kind of rolls forward, right? And let me just emphasize here, this kind of rolls forward, and this to me becomes the brow. You see that? So that's, we can even do that as a separate shape for just so we can have control. And it's also going to mean if we do this as a separate shape, we can control nice curvature. You know, if you imagine coming down here and this being fairly flat, and then as it comes up to here, this is kind of flat, still a bit of a roundness to it because we want a nice, we want that nice volume, and then it catches, because the volume will allow the light to just have a nice gradient, or the shadow to have a nice gradient across it, rather than flat means the same light, it catches the same light because it's all flat. So if there's a nice if there's a little bit of roundness to it at least, then you get a nice gradient of light across instead. And then it'll pinch here, so you'll get a little bit of a highlight there, and then the same here, it'll be nice and round, and then hooks in under, just there, hooks in under. And then here we'll have roundness but slightly less, and then here will be much more flat, you know. So we're looking for those, how the planes move. And then once, because we have it separate, we're able to control all that, and we're able to control where it meets this big large volume. And once where it meets that, we want it to go, you know, the plane wants to change to come out there. You with me? That makes sense? So obviously this is gonna have like this kind of thing. And then where this meets this, this shape meets this, and they're all intersecting. In the geo, when we do it in ZBrush, of course, these are all going to completely intersect, be all separate pieces. But once we have them all, and because the separate pieces can, like I said, control each one individually, and where they meet and how sharp the angle of the intersections, depending how sharp those angles are, we can, you know, inflate to get that nice roundness, and then the roundness on the piece that meets it, so that where they intersect, do it properly, rather than, you know, doing the whole thing from a sphere and trying to get the Damien standard into these little creases, that we can get those nice gradients that meet properly. That's much harder, and it takes a lot more fight, it just takes so much more time. And this way allows us, so if you imagine where this meets, where this volume here meets here, and it meets a flat, and then maybe, you know, maybe if you want like this to kind of come out, for this particular one, I would say I'll probably angle in. So if you imagine this from the front, the brow will come up to here, and then where it meets this will go up to the top, this being here. Okay. Something like that. Maybe even angle it in more. We'll see. We'll see how it looks once we get it into 3D. And again, that's the point of, because we have it as a separate piece, we can make it like this, and if we don't like it, we can just take that corner, push it in with a big move brush, and not affect the brow. Does that make sense? So this is how I'm thinking about the 2D design that I get, you know, whether it's in production or whether I'm doing personal work, you know, I'm thinking of how to break up the shapes initially so I can get all those primary forms in, and it allows me to stay clean because I can do these things with, you know, nice lower poly counts that I can smooth really easy and keep nice lines. I'm looking really important, like, you know, how, you know, the curvature of this line, you know, that it's nice and clean, the curvature of that crease where it meets this volume, where the two volumes meet, the curvature of the brow, the curvature from where the brow ends in the corner of the eye and then comes out and meets the cheek, and how this volume then where the mouth creases in and then comes out around this nice big volume, you know, which is really going to sell the kind of smile, you know. I can focus on all of that and keep it in separate pieces so I have full control. So I hope that makes sense. I'll tell you what, keep that up here just in case you want to refer back to it. I'll tell you what, just give me 2 seconds here because I'm going to close a window because it's starting to get a bit chilly. All sorted. Right, so let's get stuck into it then. Shane Olsen's in. Hey Shane. I mean, you all know Shane, man, the myth, the legend, one of the other Pixologic streamers. Yeah, this is I left a link. I don't know if you know his work, Shane. Patrick Balanovsky. Really lovely designs that he does that are, they've got an element of subtle beauty to them. Did I? Sure I turned off spotlight projection. There we go. That's a good way to show. You can really make out the forms, the primary forms really well, so it's a good way of showing that kind of stuff. I'm going to do a whole series of them. Oh yeah, I forgot to show you. Let me see here. Okay, so this is the last week's one. So go down. Here's this is the 2D. So we did the whole sculpt in the stream. We did the whole sculpt in the stream, and then after I went in and I, you know, rendered everything in Arnold, I brought everything across, just decimated it in ZBrush, with just auto UV'd everything in ZBrush, decimated it, brought it all into Arnold, and I brought it into Substance Painter and did some you know, surfacing on it, and oh, thanks Mark Makov for following me, and finished it all up. So did some just different passes just for fun on the lighting, just to mess it up a little bit. I think that's, yeah, then we have the stream at the bottom. So yeah, so just to give you an idea, so we can give the same kind of treatment. This guy looks kind of like, It's obviously the blue, and it's got a bit of like a whale face or something. So I'd imagine I might even, you know, do some nice nice specular work on it to make him have that kind of wet look. Yeah, so yeah, you can see, so I'm making this big piece, and the key for me at this point is get it generally in the shape you want, and then just get the next piece in there. Because there's no point in, you know, me trying to get this piece perfect in isolation. I know I say that, anyone who watches the streams regularly is probably blue in the face. Blue in the face listening to me say that all the time, but I can't emphasize it enough. It's good. Something I used to do a bit was take like a bust like this. What's nice about these, and I was saying it last week, is, you know, there's no intricate hair, there's no intricate ears. It's not like big mouth open with loads of teeth and stuff. Not things that are necessarily really difficult to make, but they are time consuming, because, you know, if you have to make gums, and then you have to do all the teeth, and then you have to place the teeth, and then you have to, you know, get the gums to sit on the teeth properly and stuff like that. So it's just time consuming, which of course is not always ideal when, for something like this where you're doing the stream, you've only got, you're on for 2 hours, you know, you gotta get moving. So it's great for this, but the fact that it is kind of quicker, and it's when I say quicker, I don't mean easier, because it's still getting those nice shapes and finding the subtleties and the right angles and edges and curves and lines and everything. So you still have all those fundamental things, but it's on something that doesn't have those, you know, time consuming elements that most, you know, if you're doing a character, you know, most would have hair, ears, teeth, or all of the above. So what I used to like doing with these kind of heads, I, you know, go on Pinterest or whatever and just find something similar, and then see how far I can get in an hour, and challenge myself to try and finish it in 1 hour. And I've done a few before, and I don't have the render. I don't think I have. I'll have a look to see if I have any of those renders. But you'd be surprised what you can do in an hour when you really push yourself to, you know, you're on the clock, you know, and you're pushing yourself. Because what you'll do is you'll realize that you can't waste time playing around. You have to get in those big primary forms, and it's a much more efficient way to work if you can focus on the big primary forms and getting everything to work together immediately, and then work with each of them relative to each other, so you can get to that proper final shape much quicker. Sorry, I'm missing some of it. That's an interesting question. Alikia, hope I'm saying that right. Is there any way to copy a subtool rotation values to another subtool? Like we have the option to copy the position value. That's a good question. That's a good question. I've never had to do that. I've never even asked that question. I tell you what, drop that into a comment. Actually, and I'll take it down. I want to figure it out myself. great question. Copy rotation from one side to another. It's not something I've ever needed to do. So I've never even asked the question, but I'd imagine, yeah, there's definitely use case scenarios for it. I'll try to find that out for you. Hey Jeffrey, how are you? Nice to have you back. Stiggy, how you going? Maker JP, back again. Hey buddy. Stiggy is asking, can you show us how to do all the stuff you have just explained about after the stream stuff? I assume UV and render stuff. Well, the render stuff is done outside of ZBrush. It's in Arnold, so that's a bit different. The UV stuff is very easy. Like I could UV all this right now. I just Z plugin, which is I just have it docked over here, but it's just here. So it's the same. It's the exact same. You can see it's just popping up over here. So. You just go into your Z plugin and UV master and just unwrap. You can unwrap all, and that's it. They're all unwrapped. They're all UV'd. Like I can isolate this and flatten. You can see there you go. It's got UVs. So simple as that. And then once it's UV'd, if you wanted to, take it into another software to render, like I did for Arnold, once you've obviously got your high poly and you want to have subdivision levels on everything so that you can drop to the lowest subdivision, do your UVs on the lowest subdivision, because obviously if you have 15 million polys and then you ask it to do a UV, figure out a seam in there, like you're asking a lot of your computer, like way too much of your computer. So you want to get the subdivision, make sure you have subdivisions, get down to the lowest subdivision, so it's this kind of level. You can go denser, a little bit denser than this, but thereabouts. And when everything's UV'd, you can go up, you can put everything back up to the high poly, and then when you decimate the high poly, you just make sure to click keep UVs, and that way it'll decimate and keep the UVs where they are, so you can go and texture it. I should do like a tutorial, like something quick on YouTube or something, just to go through the steps for you guys, because it is handy. It is for doing this, like what I showed you on last week's sculpt. To do that really quickly. Obviously, you could, of course, just decimate it and then go in and get it, all re-topoed and nice. But that takes time, and sometimes you just want to do a quick sculpting, do some nice quick texturing on it, whatever. So it's a really easy way to just quickly get your stuff so you can bring it in, texture it and render it, and make it look all fancy. There we go. You see, like straight away, I just want to bring it down to low poly just because it's easier to work with. Just make sure my symmetry's on. I can smooth things really easily and stuff, because right now it's like, if you think of it like clay, low poly is like wet clay, and high poly is like dry hard clay. And for anyone who's ever used clay, if you're doing your big primary shapes, you don't use hard clay. You warm up your clay so it's nice and soft and malleable. You make your big shapes, you get your big forms, your primaries, and then as the clay, you work with the clay. As the clay dries, you can start to refine, because now you've got that. Like if you take in a knife and you drag it along, if you do that on wet clay, it'll come out in chunks. where on a nice hard on a harder clay you can scribe in a nice line if you're doing like a seam or any details. The smaller the details, the harder the clay, ideally. And we want to pull some of this down too. Jeffries wants to ask, how do you go about turning the geo into XGen or any other hair simulation in terms of going from ZBrush to final render? That's a whole other, that's not really, you're getting into doing Groom. It's the same, it doesn't matter whether you use XGen or not. But that's going into like Groom stuff, which is like I use, if I'm gonna do Groom, I don't really use XGen. I've used Yeti, and the last one I used is the name that's left me. Can't think of the name of it. Hold on, I got a few here. Can't think of the name of it. It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, generally you do your sculpt as you usually would, and then you can, in another software like Maya or whatever, you can use splines and put the splines along, and then you want to get the splines also inside. You can either put it along. There's different techniques, and really the best thing to do if you want to know that is, get yourself a tutorial on grooming, or just go onto YouTube to get started and figure out how that works. Because I've done grooming, and I can do a bit of grooming, but it's not my primary. Ornatrix, that's the one. Couldn't think of the name. Ornatrix. Oh look, people already know before I do. That's awesome. Thanks Mike, thanks Jeffrey. You're way ahead of me. So yeah. In terms of, oh sorry, do that. Some things you can do, like for example, on something that was really handy in, I should mention also, but before I get into that, something that was really handy in ZBrush when I was doing that all that glitters is not gold character, was the title, which was a mouthful in hindsight. The kind of girl with the pink hair, this one. When I was doing this, I used fiber mesh to create tubes that all went straight out from the scalp, and then I used the hair sim and put the firmness up so that they'd all fall. And I messed around with it a bit. I leaned it back and let it fall back first, and then down, and I masked one or two and let them fall forward and all that kind of stuff, just to let it fall kind of naturally. And that really helped a lot, because then what I did was when I went into Ornatrix, before I did that, I used a plugin just to turn every tube into a spline, and then once I had all those splines, I could use that to generate my groom. So that was really handy. But then of course you can also, in fiber mesh, you know, do your fiber mesh and use the brushes to do your fiber mesh. There's tons of videos on that as well, and you can, oh sorry, you can export the curves then straight from it, which is another really quick way. I've asked about doing this in production before, and I'm not sure, because I haven't seen it being used in production, because usually groomers have their own pipelines and they don't necessarily use ZBrush because, well, they're groomers. They're using, you know, they're using the likes of XGen and Yeti and Nitrix and so on. But I've heard of people using it. I just haven't seen that technique being used in production, as in a studio or whatever. But it definitely would work for, you know, if you want to do your own groom on a character. You can do it really quickly, and you can have a lot of control in here, and then just export the curves and use that to generate your groom. So we have all our pieces in now, we can start to figure out what shape they are and how they all combine together. So of course, now when I want to like pull out that upper lip, for example, I'll increase the poly count on this piece. And as I just need it, I'll just add a little bit, just add another subdivision. You can always go back or delete subdivisions, or z-remesh it, which I'll often do as well. I'll z-remesh because it'll give me new edge flow that follows the new shape it is, because obviously a lot of it will start as like a sphere that's just pulled and stretched, and once I get it into a decent shape, I can just z-remesh it and get a topology, an edge flow that kind of works with that shape, you know. So you see the way here you've got white and black. If you hit V, it swaps between them. See, switch color is V. So if you hit V, see there, swap places. It's just doing that. So you'll notice that sometimes you might accidentally, maybe, you know, you accidentally hit V. For any, this used to happen to me. I remember when I first started using ZBrush and I didn't know why, and then I realised what it was. It'll just swap, but it's a really handy way. You know, you've also got your silhouette up in the corner, but it's a really handy way of just turning on the silhouette to see, which is good to be aware of at this stage. Let's actually kind of small eyes. Showing some eyeballs so you know where the placement of that is. What I want to do is taper this in from again. Yeah. Just yeah. This stage, just play around with it. You're just reacting at this stage. This is where it's nice to have some, like for me, I love like lo-fi and or even classical as well. I like listening to classical sometimes. Something that's like got a nice, just a nice melody that you can kind of, you know, it's not distracting you. It's not pulling from your concentration necessarily, rather than having like a YouTube video or whatever playing. So that your brain kind of is allowed to, you need some brain power at this point, because you're problem solving and reacting to the design. Right there, that's a reaction to the design. Pull that down into that. Yeah, things are squashing and stretching, so just Z-remesh. The squashing and the stretching and stuff like that is not necessarily the problem. The problem, like in and itself, the problem is I need to be able to smooth things and for them to fall into nice curves and stuff, and it'll fall towards, like the topology will collapse essentially if you smooth it, or it will even itself out if you use the alt smooth. If you lift off shift as you're smoothing, it'll use the alt smooth, which will even it out. And if your topology is all stretched, it will back to get them all back in even spacing from each other. So you need to Z-remesh so that they're evenly spaced in the shape that you want, and then when you smooth, it'll more closely maintain that shape while also smoothing out your surface and making sure everything stays nice and clean, and you get the lines that you intentionally put in there. You know. And it's also kind of important to be kind of using your imagination a little bit at this stage, because you're seeing all these seams are obviously, a lot of them are going to be blended in. And if you don't use your imagination, they can kind of throw you off. So you have to be able to see how it's going to look. In your head. Santi Ash, how you go? How's it going, brother? Stolo, that is the best smoothing explanation I've ever heard. Well, I'm very glad. Yeah, see, okay, that's a good example. See, I've tightened these up. If I smooth them, they go back to that. So I should do this. Laptop size. So now it's Z-remeshed into that shape. So it's going to be closer to what I want. You can see as I do it. See, watch. I pull these, right? Right. So these are all stretched apart. Let's just even do this. We'll pull these out here, right? Say that's the shape I want, and I want that to smooth into, like, because I want this to go into a nice curve or something. If I try to smooth this, it pulls everything back together to make them all even. If I keep smoothing, you see? It's just trying to get each point equal distance to the ones next to it. That's what that's doing. Where if I Z-remesh now, I have this, and now if I do the exact same thing, so that's why I Z-remesh things. Does that make sense now? Z-remesh is like probably my favorite feature of ZBrush, because just how well and quick it works in combination with smooth. That's just dynamic subdivision. I'm just hitting D, not control D. See, dynamic. It's not. There's no extra subdivision level added there. Let's get that hard edge going now because I want to go. And what I can do is also, I can pinch that too much, and then use that all smooth to just loosen it back out a little bit, you know, bring it too far and then peel it back until it feels right. Hey Trice, how are you? How you keeping? Nice to have you in. Thanks for saying hi. Oh, what software do I use for rendering? I use Arnold. I feel like I've missed a couple of people here. MD Subuntu says hello. Hey brother. Graham, how are you, man? Didn't get the notification you were streaming. You've been on long? No, not too long, no. Yeah, not too long. As you can see, we haven't got too far yet, so. We need to get those eyebrows in. Cheers, Trice. Just checking the comments, make sure. Hairy Mandibles back in again. How are you, Hairy? Yeah, I think that's everyone. Let's get these. I'm just gonna duplicate the eyes because the shape doesn't really matter. It's like just throwing in clay. You just need something. You can brute force, just knock it in. Standard. As you can see how that topology is sitting, not working for that shape necessarily. Now it's following where that edge was. Which is what we're getting. That's what we're looking for. And again, we can just use that. Dynamic subdivision. Now we have less polys to get lumps out of or anything like that. Cute choice of concept. Yeah, this is I was saying earlier, it's Patry Balanovsky. He has like a whole series of these heads that I think I'm just going to keep sculpting for the next while because they're really nice design. They're a lot of fun and they don't take forever to sculpt. We need to add subdivision level so we can start to get this looking. I'm just going to use the clay build up just to get the volume where I want it. Let's see, can we try get this at this point? Start. It's going to need to come down a lot. Okay. It's going to need to come down a lot. Let's say, if I'm unsure of like an angle, I'll just go more like 15-20% more than I think it should. Because usually your eyes tend to play it safe. Not even that your eyes play it safe, but you tend to not trust yourself to go as far, so just go further than you think you should. You know, like I'm talking about the angle that this goes down. I can always pull it further down, of course, at a different stage, but you know what I mean. Don't be afraid to really push it. So the reason I'm getting the mouth in is because it's another feature that's like relative to everything, so I need it. Like I can see now that this needs to come out more. I needs to work with the eyes a little bit differently, which I haven't figured out yet. But the first thing is seeing it. Without those pieces, I can't get a lock on that. The head is too wide overall, I'd say. So I don't necessarily. I'm gonna squeeze it in, but I don't want these eyes to squash. So actually, I don't want this to change either. Just for a moment, force this. That's another great tool, having that T-pose mesh. So when you get to this stage and you have all the pieces in, you can shuffle them around and get them where you need them. Once you can see everything. Game changer. It's an oldie but a goodie. Toph 1456, how are you? Hey, Manuel's doing good. Man, I had a question though about how you assess volume of a character from that angle of the image. Any kind of best practice for guessing the overall width volume of the character? Well, like you see me doing, get each section of it in, and don't worry too much. You know, just get it as best you can, more or less. Get it in there, and then once everything's kind of in place, then you can just start playing with it. Because obviously I don't know what, like, I don't have a front view or a side view, so I want to get this kind of view to work, and from that stage while trying to maintain that and get the side view and the front view working. And if something about this view needs to change for the front view to work, well, I mean, if it's your personal work, that's up to you. It depends. If you want to do a full turnaround, then obviously you want everything to work from each angle. But maybe you just want to do one single render from that one particular view, which generally isn't something that I do, but you know, I mean, it's viable. Another handy thing about having edge flow that works is you can mask easier. Not sure how I want to treat the back of that head. Just flat isn't. No, if I want just flat like that, but one thing at a time. One impossible task at a time. Where did I hear that? It's in a movie. Let's throw clay polish on that for the moment. Do is now let's get some eyelids. There's too much curvature here, so what I'll do is let me explain why. So I don't want the eyelid. You see the eyelid, the way it's like, if I want that to sit in the corner and then sit out there, like it's got to do, it's going out here a lot and around. You see, like the inside of the inside eyelid is like really a lot farther forward than this is, which I don't necessarily want. Yeah, it kind of feels wrong to have that much curvature, so all I have to do is just put the transform, the gizmo at the front of it. I have local symmetry on. Just scale that up, push it back in, and I'll have a flatter surface then. Something I often need to do with characters is make the eyes really big inside the head, to the point even in production on a show, movie, whatever. You often need to do that and then use what's called, for those of you that are unfamiliar, a lattice, which essentially to cut off the bottom of the eyelids, because the eyes are so big inside the head. When the character opens their mouth, you can see the bottom of their eyeballs in their throat. So if you ever come across that, that's not a problem. The eyeballs can cut through the inside of the mount bag. The rigger can fix that. Just tell the rigger, use a lattice. You should know how to do that. Change this on. I just seen Choice, you're asking where the active brush icon is. It's just under brush here. That's the one. I assume you know how to, like, you know, change your UI and stuff, so yeah, you can just drag this. You can see it's highlighting it. You can see it's highlighting up here. That's all it is. Change it live. What graphics tablet are you using, Paul? XD is asking. X2G. I was looking at getting Hyun. Any suggestions? I can't. Oh, what graphics tablet? Cintiq 22 HD. Yeah, because it's actually one of the older ones, which in fairness, if you're wanting to pick up a Cintiq, that'd be a good one to get now, because it'd be a lot cheaper now. And it's, you know, it's good, does everything I wanted to do. I am tempted sometimes to get the newer ones because, you know, the resolution of the screen and all that, but what I hate is anything on the sides of the Cintiq, on the area outside, on the edge of the Cintiq. But I need to look them up because I haven't actually looked at new Cintiqs in a while, so I don't know what's the latest ones out now. So I should check them out, because I wouldn't mind getting a new one. But that said, this one has done me for a long time and I love it. And I bought a Wacom Cintiq Pro, and I used it in the studio I was working in at the time for a while, and after a while I got rid of it. Sold it. I kept this one, I sold that one, because I kept hitting, like, when you're working, if this is your Cintiq, the square in the top right hand corner, there's a bunch of like touch buttons. There's none of the, you know, the big buttons on the side of it or anything, but in the top, and I kept brushing off them and like turning the thing off, or changing it from, it has a function where it can change from a screen tablet to a standard tablet, that it'll turn off the screen, but it then translates it to another screen, so you can use it, you know, like an Intuos or whatever. So, and that got really annoying, because when you turned it back on, it didn't work. You had to reboot the Wacom service, and I just got a pain with it, and I got rid of it. But I mean, that's a personal thing. It's not to say that it's bad. Just it's not a feature that I particularly like. Because I got clumsy. Well, yeah, because I'm clumsy, I guess. I don't know. I was doing it like on a daily basis, so I was starting to get very frustrated. Right, we're starting to get things in place a lot better now. I need to refine this back shape for sure, and I might actually like find a way. I might like what I kind of want to do is like that, you know, like pull all that much further back and then pull it in like that or something. That's exactly what I want to do. So I don't want that to change. Yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. Sometimes as well, so there's a thing I as like a hobby, I do climbing, and there's this weird thing, right? When you're trying to do a particular climb and it's really difficult, and often it's not like you're not strong enough or something like that. It's like there's a technique that you're missing out on, and then you watch someone else do it, and it can be pretty subtle, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes more like, you know, they led with the left hand instead of the right or something, right? Or how they started was different, whatever. They found a different route to the problem to figure out the problem. And then once you see them do it that way, suddenly this thing that you've been trying to climb for like an hour and haven't got it yet, can't get past a certain point or whatever, you glide through it easy, like it's nothing. And that often happens, something that often happens, and for any of you who watch the Olympics, it happened in the Olympics on a couple of problems, which, and it's not an unusual thing to happen necessarily either, is before anyone climbs the problems, they can all talk to each other, all the competitors. It's very social sport. They can all talk to each other and say, you know, oh, this might work, what about that, blah blah blah, right? And then say one person just says, well, if you get your foot up there and your hand up there and then you mantle or something, right? You mantle the thing or something, right? And then they all get that stuck in their head, and now that's how they start, and they're trying to figure it out from that point, and then none of them can do it. But it's actually because that first person's suggestion just happened to be the incorrect suggestion, and now none of them can do it because they're all starting wrong, because they're all following the first thing they seen without even realizing it, without even thinking, oh, what if I tried it another way. Even at a professional level this is happening, and that can be the case where sometimes, like, I could have initially seen this way and done it and pushed this back, which could maybe isn't the solution. I have to try it. Yeah, I'm trying it now, obviously. But I could have very easily, you know, if I had done this in the morning instead of now, decided to do this from the get-go. Or another different way entirely again. So sometimes it's important to try, even if you step away for a bit, that can help, and it lets you rewire your brain to be like to come back and see the solution from a different perspective, because you can get caught trying to make something work and it just will not work, and you can't think of another way to do it until you just start like clean slate in terms of your thinking. So that can help a lot. But this right at the moment definitely feels like it makes more sense to me now. Flows better. you know what I'm saying? I'm used to Intuos Pro. Cintiq 16 is enough for ZBrush. Yeah, it is. It's personal preference. Like if you're used to an Intuos, it can often be like kind of jarring when you use a Cintiq at first, because you're so used to your cursor moving around, your hand isn't next to it. I know artists that like they don't like using Cintiqs because they feel like now they're so used to an Intuos that they feel like their hand is in the way, which is bizarre when you think of like how you start doing art on paper. Like how could your hand not be in the way? But now they're so used to like an Intuos or whatever standard graphics tablet that they can't use a Cintiq. Oh, and hairy mandibles. This is not my sketch. This is Patry Balanovsky. The great Patry Balanovsky. To me, that sounds like such a cool artist's name. Like Paul Deasy to me doesn't sound like an artist's name. Maybe it does to other people from other countries who maybe aren't used to that. I don't know, but to me it just doesn't sound. Patry Balanovsky sounds like something from the Renaissance or something. You know? Z remesh that. Oh, I did it too low. Bring up the adaptive size. The adaptive size is gonna adapt the like flat surfaces will have less polys because they don't need them, and then anywhere you have like edges or anything, it will adapt to have more polys in that area to maintain the creases, to maintain the shape. What adaptive size is for anyone who wasn't sure. I should have done first though. Just cut the bottom off the neck. It's very tempting. Just thinking when I'm doing like texturing to put like, you know, cut meat in here. His head's been cut off. Just for the lols. Sorry. to find this crease on the brow. That's done is it's flat, it creased this, but it's flattened here and here, like it's flattened it, so it's not, you can see it. Maybe if no, that makes it harder to see. It's kind of it's flattened this area, either side of where I pinched. That's what the pinch brush does. Creates like a triangle, kind of it polishes either side to create that point. So what I need to do is just go back in with the smooth and just like I did before, alt smooth. So lift the shift button as soon as you press it. Once you start smoothing, take your finger off the shift button to even out that area again. Because that crease is really important. It's a special little crease. Skimming through with comments here. Geppetto is asking how's the newish joint roll going. Believe it or not, I'm actually in joint a good bit over a year now, but I get why you say newish. I was shocked when I seen that pop up on my LinkedIn. I didn't realise time has been flying by, but yeah, I absolutely love joint. Super cool people, super cool content to make. I love it. That said, keep this secret amongst yourselves, says the guy on the internet. I actually haven't told a lot of people this yet, so this is an exclusive. I'm not going to say where yet, but I am starting in a new job soon, which is, I've said it before to anyone I have talked about, it's kind of a bittersweet thing, because I've really I love the people that I worked with in Giant, and I had a lot of fun making like loads of really cool things in there that unfortunately haven't released yet, because I was doing a lot of like development stuff, but hopefully someday they will. They'll make the big screen or whatever. So but yeah, it's bittersweet, but I've actually got a new job, which is great, and it's really exciting, and I can't wait to tell you all what I'm going to be doing. Yous are all gonna know it, like it's and at some stage yous are all gonna watch it yourselves, I'd imagine, or at least a lot of you probably will, and hopefully it's absolutely awesome. I've no doubt it will be. But I won't say just yet, but soon I will. But I've told really barely anyone yet. There's only like, you can count on your fingers how many people know. So I don't want to say exactly who just yet on a stream, but in not too long away I will. But yeah, so it's really exciting to, it's always exciting, a new kind of challenge, and new people and new things to learn and all that kind of stuff. A fresh environment or whatever is always great. But yeah, it also is kind of, when you really like a job, there's that element as well of like you're sad to say goodbye and stuff. But so it's been, it's only kind of really this week that it's been official. So yeah, it's certainly been an interesting week. And a surprise to me. I had no intention of going anywhere from Giant anytime soon. I knew I wanted to do a little bit of moving around at some stage. But in terms of where I worked, I was completely happy there. And then this thing just popped up. It literally popped up in my email, to my surprise. So, but no, it's one of those ones. When I didn't want it, couldn't turn down. It was too exciting, and yeah, that's as much as I'll say for now about it. But I always find it really cool, like, people answering questions before I answer them, and people knowing where I work, and it's still bizarre to me. That so many of you guys like genuinely know stuff about me. It's bizarre. It's I'm sure if you put yourself in that position, or if you any of you have ever in that kind of position, it's cool. Osmose? No, it's not in France. Yeah, there's some stalkers. No, it's not in France. No, the studio's in America, but I'm not gonna be working in the studio. I'm working from remote. Yeah, I'm sure it'd be awesome in France. But I can't. Well, the studio is in LA. So, I mean, I guess I could move to France, but yeah, that'll be a random one. And like anywhere. But I do love Ireland. I'd have moved a long time ago if I didn't. I do love Ireland. For any faults she has. She's far from perfect, but sure, she's home. Yeah, Vancouver is on my list. That's actually somewhere I'd like to go in the next year. Potentially. I would like to do Vancouver. I've wanted to go to Vancouver. I've wanted to try Vancouver since I was in college, so yeah, I would love to do that. It seems like a really, really cool place. Yeah, same. In February. Oh, that's not far at all. Well, best of luck with it. You can let me know how awesome it is. Yeah, there's 2 studios before that got in touch with me in Vancouver. Nothing too official or anything, but just, you know, recruiters from there. So I need to sort out my. I keep meaning to. Year after year, be like, yeah, I need to go sort out my visa. But there was a couple of recruiters from Animalogic and Icon that got in touch with me. So they're both really cool studios. But for now, the new job that I'm after getting, I'd like to work with them for hopefully the foreseeable. Do the most I can with them, because I know they'll be doing some just really, really, really cool stuff. Lucas is saying, did you just say since you were a pouch? I have no idea what I actually said, but it definitely wasn't that. I have no idea what I since I was in college. Sorry, that's since I was in college. Yeah, not since I was a pouch. Although that was a weird weekend. Wanna be this WinRAR. I was thinking Arcane, best of luck with the move though. It's not Arcane, although that would be amazing because Arcane is like the best thing I've ever seen in my life. But no, it's not Arcane. But yeah, that would be awesome. But this isn't. This is like, you know what I mean. I'm not. I couldn't say I'm any less excited than if I had gotten a job on Arcane necessarily. This is definitely one of those ones that, like, if you told me when I was a kid that I'd be doing that I'd be moving to this place, I would absolutely lose my mind. So yeah, it's cool, it's exciting. Yeah, really would love to work on Arcane. I mean, who wouldn't? That show is. I noticed today, just by chance, came across. I wasn't even looking for it, but I seen it got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, that. Oh, I was so. When I got to the final episode of like this season, I was devastated, in the best way possible. That I couldn't, because I loved it. Made my week. Every week those 3 episodes came out, I was like, it was like my favorite day of the week. And that night I'd even make sure that like the room was clean, so I could just relax and sit down and enjoy it. Oh, I loved it so much. I haven't got that excited about just sitting down and watching any show since like the start of Game of Thrones. That like when that kind of first came out, and I really got into it, and I was watching it each week. Like there's, yeah, I love that. And Arcane definitely gave me that and more. Sitting there watching Arcane again and again, just thinking, how is this so good? Like, how is this good? Mind blown. Hats off to all the guys involved in making that, because they changed the game. It's actually, you know what? Like, I was only talking about this recently with people in work. This is how cool Giant is. We had a meeting after the first 3 episodes of Arcane came out to discuss Arcane, like an official office meeting, to sit down and just talk about how good Arcane was, and you know, back and forth about like, how I wonder how they did the textures, and wonder, you know, all this type of stuff, how they approached getting all these shots to look so good, getting the lighting so perfect on every frame. Every frame just looks like a oil paint. And we had this big discussion. But there's been, I was kind of mentioning that there's been so many, like, you know, you think of like the new Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse just being announced. Seen it the other day on Patrick O'Keefe's Instagram, talking about it. That, like, Into the Spider-Verse was a game changer, and I think actually that, as far as I can see, that like sparked a fire with a lot of studios, you know, because it wasn't the same formula. I just realised I'm not in perspective. That would help. That's almost automatically better. Time is it? I think that like really sparked a fire under a lot of studios, in that they seen this this style that was really pushed and really out there and really different to anything, any feature type stuff really coming before it. I mean, you know, you have like a lot of feature films, and a lot of animation that comes out is kind of 3D wise is quite samey, in a lot of ways. You know, even like if you think of like Hotel Transylvania is a good example of something that was quite different, but it was different in that like the models weren't the models and the shading and all that kind of stuff, they weren't like anything that you were like, whoa, what's this? You know what I mean? It was just like the best it could be with the technology in that moment, which is basically what every other film is consistently doing at that point. And in terms of like art direction and style and stuff, you know, you've got this really squash and stretch snappy animation that's really nice, and it certainly helps, and it certainly stands out for that. But then you get like Into the Spider-Verse, which is, you know, nothing like anything before it. It's like, for me, the first time, at least definitely in feature film, where anyone's ever really hit that comic book style and nailed it, made something like special with it, you know. And I think that the success of that, the response that people had to that, where clearly everyone just wanted more. Like, I had people that, like, you know, we all know we have our artists friends, people we work with in the industry and stuff like that, and then you have, you know, your uncle who doesn't have a clue. Like, if I said a character modeler, he'd be like, I have no idea what that is. And you know, your friend that's like a carpenter and that aren't involved in this industry, that were like are into necessarily like comics, cartoons and that end of things, they watch, you know, live action blockbusters and stuff, and this type of, if you say, oh, there's a new animation coming out, to be like, I'm not really into that kind of stuff, you know, that kind of, that were like, Into the Spider-Verse, one of the best films I've watched, definitely one of the best films I've watched this year, if not the best film I've watched this year, which, coming from someone who has no interest in that kind of stuff, means you've done something really about it. Everyone loved it, and there was that such a big response caused the rest of the industry, because you have to remember these are big companies that have to make back their money. So they were like, wow, okay, so there is a demand for this. And once everyone realized that there was such a big demand for this, suddenly now we're getting all these new interesting styles. Even, let's say, even with you know, even in damn it, what's the name of it? What's, you know, the bunch of shorts that came out for on Netflix. You know, they're all different styles. That came out not long after Into the Spider-Verse, because like the third episode of it or something, I was like, oh, this looks so like Into the Spider-Verse, like in terms of the texturing and stuff. Damn, what was that called? But then you had the like Disney Reels did a bunch of stuff that was beautiful. Love, Death and Robots. Thank you very much. Sex and Robots. Yes, Love, Death and Robots came out not too long after that. You had Disney Reels, you had another the other Sony film, with the family and the robots. What was that called? Something wrong with my brain today with robots. Meet this something or something. What was that called? Some of you have probably answered me already, and here's me googling like it. The Mitchells versus the Machines. That film was beautiful, and again really different and really pushed, and they were doing again like some groundbreaking stuff, and to me that film, which is kind of a side note now, but I really felt like that film was made, like the main character, the young girl who's an artist, that film was really made as like a love note to a lot of artists. Like I could relate so much to so many things in that film. Absolutely love that film. It would have been a great film if the robots never even came into it. For me, like just as the characters and how they interacted with each other as a family and stuff, I thought it was just really well done, on top of the obvious excellent art direction that went into making that film. And then we get Arcane, and you know, there's so many people, so many studios that have now like been like, right, it's the time to be creative and get weird with our films and TV shows and games, because people want you know, something new. I think people are starving for something new, I think. And as far as I can tell, what sparked it off, not for people but for the industry, was Into the Spider-Verse. So that film, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's other factors in there too. You know, I don't claim to know everything about the industry or anything. But as far as I can, from where I'm sitting, that was like one of the most important movies for this industry in a long time, since Toy Story. You know, game changer. I mean, that's a big claim to say it's as important as Toy Story, considering Toy Story kicked off 3D animation full stop. But I mean, as a worldwide consumable thing, but you know what I mean. It changed things. And I think Arcane is now, like, for Arcane to come along as a TV production and be as absolutely mind-blowingly incredible as it clearly is, that to me is another game changer, you know. And something I loved as well was the 3 episodes a week. I don't really like, I know, and this is gonna be different for everyone. This is for me. I don't really like binging something. You know, just sitting there flat out binging the whole kit and caboodle in one. You know, for like 9 hours straight. Ben and Jerry's in one hand, and you know, just as much as that can make for a really relaxing time, and especially when you have a really good show like Arcane, as much as that can be kind of like, oh, I'd love to do that. Anytime I've done it, I've always regretted it. Like when it's too late, I'm like, oh god, the whole day is gone, and I'm restless now. I know I can't sleep, and it's just I don't like doing it. So where the 3 episodes is a big chunk of content to watch every week. So you know, it's an evening that you get to sit down and enjoy like this really cool thing. But then it ends, and you know you've more to look forward to next week. It kind of controls it for you. For those of us that don't have very good willpower, that will indulge and keep going to the next episode, it's nice to, you know, it cuts it off, and now you've something to look forward to next week. And when that comes, you get to sit down and you're like, oh yes, this is, you know, my me time for the week, and I get to just watch this awesome show and relax. I love it. And I'm really excited to see what other great cool stuff, like Marvel's What If. I watched that as well, and like just the fact that came out, like just like, let's make a show where we'll just take all the premises of all these films, turn them on their heads. And I know like there was a whole comic thing on that, but like it's that kind of content not too long ago just wasn't being made. You know what I mean? Not in the mainstream like it is now by big studios. It wasn't being made. You know, and especially like I miss, you know, I'm a 90s kid. I grew up watching the animated Batman series and Gargoyles and Street Sharks and Biker Mice from Mars and all these things, and just great Saturday morning cartoons. And all the, you know, for me, Marvel, growing up in the 90s in Ireland, where, you know, you've got like 7 TV channels like when I was a kid, and there was like 1 that did actual cartoons. Marvel characters to me are not the comic characters necessarily, although they're obviously not either the MCU feature blockbuster movies characters either. They're all the old TV shows, you know, like the old Spider-Man TV show with the unreal guitar solo and everything, and the X-Men and the Hulk and yeah, and all those characters that showed up from time to time in them that now have like feature films, like, you know, I think like the Punisher. I always loved seeing like the Punisher come up in like a Spider-Man episode, and you know, I think there's like 3 Punisher films, possibly with 3 different actors doing each, at least 2. So yeah, it's there. That's how I always knew Marvel. That's how I, like, you know, discovered all that. Same with Batman. Batman was my favorite character, literally ever. Do I have this? No. So, oh, Invincible. That's another great shout. Invincible was so good. Yeah, throw them at me. Anything I didn't mention. Let's do this. Toy Story 4 was just, yeah, absolutely, couldn't agree more. It was just amazing. That's another, like, the quality of stuff has also gone so high. It's not to say if you're not doing something different like Spider-Verse, then it's not good, because that's obviously not the case either. Like, you know, Toy Story, they've been, that you know, art direction and shape language that they're using, and the all that kind of stuff in terms of their style, they've been doing that for so long. But it's like classic, and it's classic because it's excellent. And yeah, I really enjoyed all the Toy Stories, even to the forgotten Toy Story, or what was it, Raya and the Last Dragon, or Lost Dragon, I've forgotten. But like the quality there in the, like, the texture and everything, like, it really jumped up a notch, you know. So even like Disney, they have their style, and the Disney style has been replicated by so many people, because it became, like, you know, it obviously Disney created the standard, that animation was held to for almost forever, and their Disney-esque style became iconic and has been used across the industry by God knows how many companies. Probably more have than have not, at least mimicked Disney in some way, shape or form. But that still is iconic, you know, and you can't really, you can, I what am I trying to even say? It's that probably became that style that became overused because so many other studios were doing it. And as much as it's still there in Disney, and still there with a lot of artists, even including myself, tons of influence from all Disney's work over the years. They still change it enough, you know, like the animation, the facial expressions, like that like the dragon in that, when she turned into a woman, and her facial expressions, like, they were actually caught me by surprise. They were so good. Like, I actually had to, like, you know, that you're like, I'm pausing the film and going through, flicking back to be like, break it down into like blend shape form so I can figure out how to replicate it. Like, just they're masters of their craft without a shadow of a doubt. And they have some of the best artists in the world working for them. So I need to where I can't have it. What was that? Best ever? But I can't see what you're replying to. Hold on, I'm cash. Oh, Klaus! God, how did I miss Klaus? Especially this time of year. Klaus was another game changer. Incredible. Not, and I haven't seen anyone else do it since. But wow. They took the whole take 3D and turn it into 2D and like flipped it on its head. Absolutely incredible film. And another one that came out, like, all these came out very recently. All these came out only in the last couple of years. What about Yum Yum Good though? That one's gone over my head, I'm not gonna lie. I have messed a ton of stuff here. I'm catching up with you. Some memes. Here's it. Just since the world is 71% uncarbonated water, that means it's technically flat. There you go. Just in case anyone was wondering. That's fun. Yeah. The robots, yeah. Just realize my pets are. Oh yeah, cool. This guy's fun. What are you? Klaus is amazing, yeah. I'm not gonna. Hitler's mustache was designed to fit a gas mask perfectly. Not so fun fact. Yeah, love it. Keep them coming. I can't stop it. Graham saying biker mice from Mars and gargoyles. Yeah, especially like I rewatched Gargoyles and that thing is still amazing. I haven't gone back to Biker Mice from Mars because I feel like that was good for me as a child and I'm not going to be able to appreciate it as much as an adult. Like that, you know what I mean? I don't, where Gargoyles are like the Batman animated series, like you can still watch that as an adult. And I same with Street Sharks. I don't know if I could watch that as an adult now. But as a whatever, as a little kid, top notch, absolutely, like nothing but good memories. All the toys, the whole king caboodle. Here's one for you. This'll a lot of you, only the older ones obviously will know this, or slightly older. Crash Test Dummies. Does anyone remember Crash Test Dummies? Honestly, does anyone remember Crash Test Dummies? Because that was another, like, I remember getting, like, for Christmas, but nothing. And at this stage, I was the only grandchild, so I was the only child in the family. So obviously, you know, there was a couple of years at the beginning of my life where I was absolutely spoiled rotten, and all I got was Crash Test Dummies, like bag loads of Crash Test Dummy toys. I absolutely loved it, and it was 3D. It was 3D. Graham, you tried Biker Mice recently and it doesn't hold up, yeah, unfortunately. But you know, that's okay. That's okay. It wasn't made for us now. It was made for us back then, and it nailed it. So that's cool. If you haven't tried Gargoyles though, that's one you can go back to. Well, I certainly could. Do I have this yet? Let's go. Yeah, why not? Whoops. Put that down to 1 so we get a plane. Original superhero gummy bears. I don't remember that, unfortunately. That one I didn't get. I didn't catch. I guess as well, it depends. Like, there's probably some stuff that some of you guys watched in other countries that I wouldn't have seen, and vice versa. I remember watching like the Clangers and stuff when I was really young in my nana's house. And not even necessarily because I was dying to watch the Clangers. Like, if I could watch Spider-Man or any of the Marvel cartoons, DC, Gargoyles, Biker Mice from Mars, any of that stuff, I would absolutely watch that. But I'd end up watching the Clangers because there was, like I said, one channel to watch cartoons on. I guess there was 2 after a while. So, you know, for any of you guys that had that similar experience, you know what it's like to sit there and watch stuff you don't like, watch cartoons just because they're cartoons and not because it's actually something you like. Or maybe everyone was like that back then, I don't know. Like, I just imagined maybe places like, but first place I think of was like America would have had, even in the 90s, like would have had more options as standard. But I don't know, that's actually just an assumption, I have no idea. It depends, maybe you had like, it's probably had different packages and stuff, where here everyone had the same, basically the same thing. I think it was 11 channels altogether. I just seen Johnny Quest and I thought of Johnny Bravo and got really excited because that was great, but I can't think, I know that The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest. Oh, if it's 3D it definitely won't. Like, I just on YouTube there was another show, and I won't be able to tell you the name of it, I've forgotten it completely, that I watched as a kid. Actually, someone from work, a friend of mine, Mark, was like, oh, do you remember this? And it was the first time it even crossed my mind since I was a kid, and it was so cool to see it again. But, and do you know what, it didn't look bad. No, the 3D looked god awful, but like as in the story and stuff, I was like, maybe I could get over the atrocious 90s 3D. But it was, you know, it was a thing, like you had the Transformers cartoons back then and everything that were just woeful when you look back. I mean, you know, they did the best they could with the technology they had at the time, obviously. But it is fun to look back on and see, oh, Christ, how did I watch this? But you know, it's the same. Like, I don't know if any of you has tried to go back and watch like the first Incredibles, because that film was fantastic. Like, really not that long ago, I guess. Well, it's a good while. But you know what I mean? Like, compared to the latest one, like the difference is huge. Like the shading and all that, the difference is absolutely huge. Oh, do you know what? Here's another one. Another example of a film that's not exactly like, you know, doing anything crazy with its style, like say the Spider-Verse or anything is, but and it's not out yet. I'm building the tension. Can you but the quality looks out of this world. The new Lightyear. I cannot wait to see the new Lightyear. Just even, that's another example of like a film that's like people thinking outside the box. I feel like not that long ago, if you said, let's take the toy character from this long running beloved franchise, let's take that character as a toy that thinks he used to be real and has like this story that he tells himself. Let's make the story as if he is actually real, and let's do all that. Like, like in a you know, in Hollywood, you pitch that, they'd be like, no, we're not doing that to Buzz Lightyear. He's a toy. Like, it'd be almost like, no, why would we do that? I feel like not that long ago, that film would not be made. Either would that Detective Pikachu film. Not to say, like, look, I was a 90s kid. I loved Pokemon. When I watched the Detective Pikachu film, I enjoyed seeing the Pokemon in 3D, like as if they were real. I loved seeing like Marowak at the start and Bulbasaur. Still remember the names, but it was a terrible film. I think it was a terrible film because it was made now as if it was made back in the 90s. What I mean by that is, it was made, the film should have been made, I guess it was probably made for Japanese kids, I don't know, maybe, I get like Pokemon is still big, and maybe it was made, but I feel like that's no, I feel like that's not true. I feel like the biggest fans of Pokemon are still my age, are still like late 20s, early 30s, are still in that age range, or at least are, you know, like 20 up. Why would you not, if you're gonna make a live action Pokemon film, surely it's obvious to make it for that age range. But look, I don't know. What do I know? I don't own any studio or. So, yeah. But that's what I would have done with it, and I think I felt really like, oh, it's such a shame that they made this film for a younger audience. You know, because yeah, I think it just could have been a lot better if they had made it a bit more of a mature story. And even the gags and stuff, you know, more mature. That's my feeling on it. Anyway, sure, who am I? Speed Race. Mod Boy, I'm 55 and Speed Racer was our favourite as kids. Batman animated has to be my all-time favourite. Great choice. Bruce Timm started a style that so many artists picked up. Yeah, I mean, it's like that show strikes me, which I was too young at the time to realise, but that show strikes me as a game changer for that era of animated TV for sure. You know, when you look, like, it was in a similar way. I think Gargoyles hit similar notes in that it was so mature for like, you know, your dad wasn't gonna sit down and watch it because he was like, I'm not sitting down and watching cartoons, why would I do that? But he could have, he just didn't know it. He could have. Yeah, it was changed the game. And that's the thing, I was a kid and I loved it. It wasn't like, you know, because I think we're suffering from that again, which I think the industry suffered from kind of before Batman. Not forever before Batman, but for a period where it was very oh, the kids want this and the kids have to learn a lesson and the kids have to be, you know, taught how to count, and then even a little bit older the kids have to like not have to have all your kids in the car wearing seatbelts in this cartoon so that nobody thinks that, you know, all that ticker tape nonsense. I just gave it back to the artists and let the artists make what artists do best. And I've seen that in the last couple of years, but I and that was something that really, when I was talking earlier about Joint, that I loved about Joint is they really got me back to, you know, any of the TV shows that they wanted to make Saturday morning TV. And for me, the most entertaining content that I remember from my entire life, the content that resonated with me more, it's kind of like, you know, the Christmases that resonated most with me are the ones where I still believed in Santa. The TV shows that resonated with me most are, you know, your Batman and your Gargoyles, and like, I mean, there's a whole range there, from that to the Biker Mice from Mars, Street Sharks, to Pinky and the Brain, to Johnny Bravo, and, you know, those more, or all the way down to like Wile E. Coyote and Bugs Bunny and stuff, all doing different stuff, but all like iconic for what they were doing. And they resonate with me most, you know. Like, I know I have a brother who's a good bit younger than me, and I remember he was really into like Ben 10, and I'm sure had I been his age, that would be what I'd be sitting here talking about. So it's not the case that they're the only ones and there's never been anything since. I'm sure Ben 10 would have been something that I absolutely loved when I was a kid, but obviously I was at the age where that was not. I don't think, well, I could be wrong, but I don't think Ben 10 was necessarily, it wasn't of the Batman or Gargoyle ilk where you could watch it and you're older. It was closer to like the Street Sharks and Biker Mice from Mars, where it's not something you necessarily can come back to when you're older. Could be wrong, I don't know. I didn't really watch it, but that's how it struck me. But it's exciting to be in the industry right now. It's exciting even to just be a consumer of that content right now. It's exciting to see all this artwork and stories that are being made that are a bit more risk taking, and it's nice that the industry seems to have got a big shake in that, because it's very easy because the entertainment industry is obviously one of the biggest industries in the world, so it's very easy for it to become safe, because they're making content. You think the same with the game. Someone mentioned the game actually. Someone mentioned the game and they were bang on. Some nice games, like same with the games industry. It can get safe, where you're not getting new content. You're getting the same stuff again and again and again, with essentially just different wrapping. In terms of games, you talk about like your Call of Duty and all that kind of stuff that people give out about stuff that's just churned out every year. That's just like, well, we can stretch this out and get as much money as possible out of it. And it's not trying to be. They're not trying to be They're not putting them out so they can flex their creative muscles. They're putting them out for money. It's just the money that's the driver. And the same things happen in animation and live action and all that as well. But it feels like we're in a time where I guess we're getting tired of seeing that stuff, and it's forced risk. Maybe it's one way of looking at it, but I don't know. I could be talking absolute pony here, but I've no one to tell me otherwise, so I'm no connoisseur of the industry. I just like to make characters. But that's how I look at it. I really should be. How's this looking? This shape, I never got this shape down properly. I think we're over our time. Yeah, we're 15 minutes. I don't think there's anyone on too soon after. I hope not. We'll wrap up soon, I'm sure. Here now. Just realised this goes so far from. Should be a lot stumpier. See, as soon as I changed that shape to kind of get this edge in properly, all of a sudden it became clear to me. I'm sure there's probably a bunch of you there looking at it going, Paul, are you going to fix that? I'm getting to it. Alright. We will call it there, I think. I don't know whether now, because I was kind of thinking I'll just do one of these a week. But like I could get away with, I could probably do another stream with this and go into the detail on that extreme. Fix up some of the shapes and stuff. Get it closer to the... Because like you see the distance here. Why does it do that? I can't remember. Oh, there's a reason it does that and I can't think of what the hell causes it. This needs to be wider. So it flows better. Oh, it was under the ground plane, I think. Yeah. Let's just do it under there. Damn it. I'll do you. Yeah, at this stage I'd start dynameshing some stuff together and getting some and working into the shapes better. But you can see, like, I think that, sorry, I'm pointing at it with my finger, like you can see what I'm doing. I think this, we could even make this wider and round off the edge a little bit more now to get this working. But I'd want to start dynameshing these together so I can start to make more sense of this as it needs to be. Even the mouth, just getting the shape so it's just nice, so it's just working nice. Obviously this is a slightly different angle. Yeah, getting that eye in further, it's a bit big, you know. So at this stage we can start refining and checking it against everything, dynameshing what we need to dynamesh and refining the shapes a bit more, all that good stuff. And yeah, just figuring it out, just getting it closer and closer as we go. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that last conversation now. Oh, Samurai Jack, how did I not mention Samurai Jack? Years of just nothing but love for Mr. Jack. Yeah, I love that show. I don't know how many conversations I've had about that. The show with Jack all in white and the ninja in black, and they like cut through the so good. Fantastic show. Loved the Scottish guy in it. Can't remember his name now. It's years since I watched that. I'd rewatch that for sure. That's something someday I'll like have a kid or two and sit them down and force them to watch Samurai Jack, and they'll be like, oh, this is old, and I'll be like, tough. It's either that or I put the paper clips in your eyes. Look at the Jetsons movie. The use of 3D destroyed the movie. Right, yeah. Actually, something I was looking at for a reference on something today was the SpongeBob movie, which I haven't watched, but actually that looks like it's been doing, that did some really cool stuff with the art direction there. the latest one, I believe. That looks quite really interesting. They've captured that kind of sideways face on a flat surface thing that you do in 2D. You see in 2D a lot, but never in 3D because it's so difficult to do. Like how do you do a set of blend shapes on that and stuff, you know what I mean? It's a whole different approach. Where am I? Yeah, I mean, but yeah, Samurai Jack is another one of like those, just a creative show that was put together, and it's now like beloved, you know. There's so much content being put out that is just like, you know, be as safe as possible, let's please as many people as possible, and nobody watches it, you know. That's the majority of content that gets created for TV especially. Then again, there's a lot of movies out there that nobody, you know, not stuff that obviously goes into the cinema and stuff, but you know, a lot of films out there are like that. And maybe there's studios across the world that are just trying to make whatever money they can make, and you know, that's fine. But yeah, in terms of like making great content, he did a show called Primal recently. Oh, did he? Oh, I haven't seen it. Primal. I need to Google Primal to create more episodes. Alright, nice. That's a great show. I'm gonna write that down here and watch Primal. Didn't catch that. Was I too young for? I know what I kind of maybe. Yeah, I was too young for Thundercats, I think, but not by far. Yeah, I think that like I was born in 1990, so I think I came a bit after Thundercats. Did I? But I know what they are. I've seen it, but it wasn't something I watched all the time as a kid. It just wasn't shown on the Den. Yeah, exactly. Man after my own heart. Yeah, the Den. Yeah, that was a show. El Ray Darcy and the likes. Dustin. El Socky. If you've never, for any of you guys that aren't from Ireland, that are at all interested in what my childhood looked like and the content that I consumed, put the Den and just put Ireland, say, or RTE the Den, or yeah, just the Den Ireland will be simple, and you'll see what I mean. It's good stuff. Giwana Saki. Yeah, do a model of Saki and Dustin. Dustin, some of you might remember Dustin from the Eurovisions. Proud moment for all us Irish people at that point. And Cuphead was the game that was mentioned. Yeah, that's another really good example of, like, you know, breaking the mold and really successfully. So yeah. Anyway, I better wrap up because there'll be people giving out especially if someone else is supposed to be on right now. That would be a nightmare. So thanks again, guys, for everyone who joined, and thanks for the lovely chats. It's always a pleasure. Please do join us next time, because I really do enjoy chatting to you all. And I can continue with this guy and start refining, dynamesh everything together, get in the details, poly paint them. Why not? If we get the time, we can poly paint them. If we're not yapping too much, and yeah, and then I'll go away, do me renders and do me texturing and all that crack, and you can see how it turns out, so you can get an idea of like the kind of final results you can get. So if you enjoyed it, you want to see more, you know what to do. All the likes, subscribes, whatever you feel is appropriate. And if you don't, let us know, by all means. And if you want to see more as well, you can notification bell that bad boy, because there's a ton of other there's a ton of other sculptors on this channel that are doing amazing work, so it's not just myself. Although if you want to come here just for me, by all means, I'm fine with that. So I'm gonna hit the road, guys. Best of luck, have a good one.